Discretion is advised.
Well, for the first time this series, I'm closing the nominations early. That's right, I'm closing them early. I thought February was bad enough with them coming out the walls. But it seems we're off to Twatsville again for a second visit. So sit back and enjoy and find out who's on my list for March's Cock of the Month. Hello, I'm Mr. G and welcome back to another one of my videos. It seemed we had a huge deluge of candidates this month and I've decided to put a cap on it before we get flooded out. So I've narrowed it down to 6 nominations, so let's get on with it. Our first candidate turned up at the start of the month and I was sure he was going to take the title. But as you will see later on, others appeared. And that is Labour MP David Lammy. Lammy criticised Comic Relief and Stacey Dooley, saying on Twitter, "The world doesn't need any more white saviours. As I've said before, this just perpetuates tired and unhelpful stereotypes." Hi Stacey Dooley, this isn't personal, and I don't question your good motives. My problem with British celebrities being thrown out by Comic Relief to make these films is that it sends a distorted image of Africa, which perpetrates an old idea from the colonial era. The thing is, why did he feel he had to make this attack now? Comic Relief has been going for quite a few years and has had a lot of celebrities of different backgrounds making these films. The face of Comic Relief is Lenny Henry, who is black. I noticed Lammy didn't have a go at him. Comic Relief issued a statement saying, "We have previously asked David Lammy if he would like to work with us to make a film in Africa, and he has not responded. The offer is still open." So David, maybe it's time for you to put your money where your mouth is and maybe do something about it. If not, get on with your job and stop bothering the Comic Relief people. Next! Our next candidate is shameless star Tina Malone. Tina Malone was facing a High Court contempt hearing after retweeting alleged picture of James Bulger's killer, Jon Venables. She was facing a 2-year prison sentence. She managed to escape a prison sentence after saying she was high on antidepressants 6 weeks after a mental breakdown. She claims she did it because it was on the internet. Isn't everything on the internet? Why am I here and not Mark Zuckerberg? Now, I don't have any sympathy for the Bulger killer, but the law is the law and he's been allowed to remain anonymous. Right or wrong how you feel about this, you're not allowed to put a spotlight on him and she crossed the line. Also, is it a good defence to say that you were high on drugs at the time? It isn't in my book. Next! Our third candidate has finally made his way onto my list for the COTM award, and it's a long time coming, and that is Nigel Farage. Now, I know Farage is a cock 24/7, but he's on the list this time because of his hypocrisy. Farage urged the EU to block Brexit extension, telling them, "You don't want me coming back here, or hordes of Eurosceptics coming back here." Now, to me, running to the EU after running a campaign to leave the EU reeks of hypocrisy, and it seems I wasn't the only one to feel that about him too. Members of Parliament, including Esther de Lange, had said this about him.
This is a man who actually led his country, led his party to a Brexit vote, only the next day to admit that he lied and tricked and to jump ship and leave his party. This is not leadership, it's a circus. Secondly, I'm glad you're here, Mr. Farage. Secondly, he says he doesn't want to be part of a German European Union, yet he has made sure that 2 of his children have German passports. This man wouldn't know hypocrisy if it stared him straight in the face.
After urging the EU, he left the building. Obviously, he didn't want to hear the backlash against him this time. Sadly, Farage never seems to like standing up to the heat, especially when it's not going his way. And also, he's two-faced, going to the EU to get them to help him to opt out. What's amusing is his march on March the 18th had just about 100 people turn up to support him. Doesn't seem to be as popular as he thinks he is. Next! Our fourth candidate is a guy who sparked outrage after the New Zealand shootings, and that is Australian Senator Fraser Anning. Anning put out a statement following the shooting saying the real cause of the bloodshed on New Zealand streets today is the immigration programme that allowed Muslim fanatics to migrate to New Zealand in the first place. His statement prompted anger, with close to 1.4 million people signing an online petition demanding that the senator step down after supporting right-wing terrorism. The following day, the debate took a turn when a teenager smashed an egg on the senator's head during a TV debate. Anning's immediate response was to lash out and strike the 17-year-old, who was then wrestled to the ground. The images immediately went viral, and Egg Boy was celebrated as a hero for standing up to racism. He was later identified as schoolboy Will Connolly and received 70,000 Australian dollars in crowdfunding donations to help with legal fees and buy another box of eggs. In a press conference, Fraser Anning refused to back down over his views and said the teen who threw an egg at him deserved to be slapped, as he was defending himself. Hitting somebody who hit you over the head with an egg is not defending yourself. It's you being a bully. With a bit of luck, there are more egg boxes out there being marked with your name. Next. Next up, and still on the Egg Boy story, we have former Superman star Cain, who said he would have knocked that kid out. The American actor, who is an outspoken Hollywood conservative and a regular who goes on Fox News, said he would knock out a child in the egg incident via a tweet. Of course, even Superman couldn't escape the internet when people roasted him on Twitter. Superman's kind of a dick. And this one? He was protesting a horrible racist man who blames the death of those 50 people on them and their religion. One person had replied to one of his tweets that had said, "You perpetrate violence upon someone, you will reap the repercussions with, 'It's an egg, Dean. An egg.'" It wouldn't surprise me if Lewis Lane would love to have a word with him on this one. Next. Our final entry has been waiting to be on my COTM list for quite some time, and has finally made it after the shit she pulled recently, and that is none other than Theresa May. March had May trying to get through her meaningful vote a second time, even though MPs had rejected her deal. The vote was majorly defeated and it left her in a bad position. Of course, May being May again wanted to push for a third meaning vote, saying it was her deal or the high road. Fortunately, the Speaker of the Commons, John Bercow, had had enough, and using an old law stopped her from bringing back her vote unless it had sufficient changes to the deal. Basically, he was saving her from being once, twice, 3 times a loser, and witnesses claimed that as he was leaving the chambers, he was shouting, "Checkmate, suckers!" This meant her only option was to return to the EU and ask for an extension. She gave a press conference on the night of the 20th. To sum it up, it goes something like this. "Not my fault, it's them that done it. Totally on your side, unlike my fellow backstabbing colleagues. Honest, Governor, but you ain't getting a second opinion on this one. Fuck you and good night." Of course, her fellow MPs weren't very happy with her for being blamed for the Brexit failure, and united to condemn her. Mark Francois, a hardline Brexiteer, told Sky News, "If you're trying to persuade numbers of MPs to back a proposition, you don't do that by insulting them." Philip Lee, a Conservative MP who supports the second referendum, said that MPs deeply resented being cast by the Prime Minister as the enemies of the people. That's the thing, you don't alienate the people who you are trying to convince to back you. The trouble with May, she has an arrogant attitude of, "It's my deal or fuck off." So there you have it, my list of people I put up for my award this month, and each one of them deserves to be in my Hall of Infamy.
Fuck you very, very much. 'Cause we hate what you do and we hate your whole crew, so please don't stay in touch.
So what do you think? Do you think they're all worthy winners? Who would you put up for the award for this month? I would love to hear from you on this. I hope you liked this video. If you did, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. Take care and bye for now.